most college students, when August comes around, they begin to dread the start of school. For me, I get the satisfaction of football season starting and also fantasy football. Fantasy football has been around for over 50 years, but has truly blossomed in the past decade. According to New York Post writer Gregory Bigzer, nearly 75 million people play fantasy football this year. Having success in fantasy football is not easy. You have to put a lot of preparation and time commitment. People of all ages play fantasy football, but it's a huge culture in our age group. I'm sure some of you either play fantasy football or know people that do. So to those of you that do play fantasy football or plan on playing in the future, I hope my speech is very helpful to you. Through my 8 years of playing fantasy football, I have learned the measures that you have to take to build a successful team. Building a successful fantasy football team involves 3 basic steps: preparing before the draft, adapting during the draft, and making moves during the season. The first step in building a successful fantasy football team is preparing before the draft. Every year before the fantasy football season begins, fantasy experts write articles trying to give advice to fantasy players. This advice includes who to take, when to take those players, and those players that you just want to stay away from. However, you do not really know who you want to take or when you want to take them unless you know your league scoring settings. Here are my league scoring settings. John Kelly of waiverwarrior.com believes that you should always wait until later rounds to take a quarterback and to spend your first few picks on running backs and receivers. His reasoning behind this is that in most leagues, you're only allowed to start one quarterback, and quarterbacks are only given 4 points for every touchdown, as opposed to receivers and running backs who are given 6 points for every touchdown. However, as you can see in my league, quarterbacks are given 6 points for every passing touchdown. So in a league such as mine, drafting a quarterback early on that throws many touchdowns can actually be very beneficial. This is why knowing your league scoring settings beforehand is very essential. Another way to prepare for the draft is trying to find those players that you can take at the perfect draft position. These players are also known as sleepers. For example, let's say you take someone in the 9th or 10th round who ends up being a top 15 player at his respective position. You do not have to spend a high draft pick on him, and he still performed as if he is one. Now, there's never a guarantee with these kind of players, but this is why prior research is very important. Now that I've talked to you about preparing before the draft, I want to talk to you guys about adapting during the draft. The second step in building a successful fantasy football team is adapting during the draft. It is always wise to have a list of players down that you want to take and you know when you want to take them. However, when the draft comes around, you're not always going to be able to take these same players. For example, during my draft, I wanted to take a running back at one spot, but someone else took him in that spot and I had to adapt in the moment and take my plan B player. This is when prior research comes in handy. If you have multiple players in mind that you want to take at a specific spot, you'll be satisfied with whoever you get and you'll move on from there. Another way to adapt this is what separates a great fantasy football team and a good fantasy football team. Now that I've told you guys about adapting during the draft, I want to talk to you guys about making moves during the season. The third step in building a successful fantasy football team is making moves during the season. A common saying in the fantasy football community is that you can never win your league during the draft. Paying attention to your league's waiver wire is very important. A waiver wire is where players that are not owned by any of the managers are kept as free agents. According to Nate Weitzer, paying attention to players' injury status and also other players' injury status can make a huge impact on your team. For example, let's say that you have a running back starting on your team a specific week and he gets hurt. If you're aware of this, you can go to the waiver wire and pick up his backup to fill that void for your running back that just got injured. Also, if another manager's running back gets injured, you can pick up that running back's backup and you'll have an advantage over the other managers. Another way to make moves during the season is to make reasonable trades with other managers. Let's say that you have 6 solid receivers on your team and only 2 running backs. You cannot start all 6 receivers at one time, and so it'd be wise to trade 1 or 2 of those receivers for another running back and to bring more balance on your team. Being able to make these trades and also being aware of rising players during the year is very important to creating a team. I hope I've been able to explain the 3 basic steps of building a successful fantasy football team: preparing before the draft, adapting during the draft, and making moves during the season. Fantasy success comes with a lot of luck, but I hope these 3 steps can make you go in the right foot. As is the case with many other things in life, fantasy success is not just handed to you. You have to put in a lot of work and dedication. Thank you guys for listening to me today. Thanks. How long was it?
Oh, I didn't end it because I thought you had to take a video of the audience afterwards.